Observe, imitate, and modify. That's the simple method often found in the countryside, and it's where all ideas begin. Together with Crafted Nest, we'll explore the journey of creating a humble vegetable garden that you can bring to life yourself, even in the smallest of spaces. Imagine this. With just a small step, some soil, a few seeds, and a touch of creativity, you can build a garden that is beautiful, colorful, and truly useful. Every category we'll share today is inspired by real life, practical ideas you can apply directly at home. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe to Crafted Nest. That way, you'll never miss fresh inspirations and creative ideas we share to brighten your days. There is something timeless about a simple raised bed. It stands like a quiet frame, cradling the soil and the promise of growth. Imagine walking into your backyard in the early morning light, dew still resting gently on the leaves. The wooden sides of your raised bed feel warm and sturdy beneath your hands, as if they have absorbed the sun's blessing from the day before. Within those borders, the earth looks darker, richer, more alive. Here, every seed has its place, and every sprout grows with less struggle. Raised beds are not just about structure. They are a gentle invitation to grow smarter, not harder. By lifting the soil above the ground, you protect roots from waterlogging, you warm the earth faster in spring, and you create a canvas that is easy to tend without bending too deep. For beginners, this is a gift. For seasoned gardeners, it is a chance to refine their craft. The soil stays loose, the weeds fewer, the harvest more abundant. There is also artistry here. You can line your beds with wood for a rustic charm, or stones for a touch of permanence. You might plant marigolds at the edges to welcome pollinators and add color to the green. Each choice is yours to shape, each season a new chance to redesign. And when the time of harvest arrives, it feels different. Pulling a carrot from a bed you built with your own hands carries a satisfaction that no market purchase can match. It is proof that small steps, measuring, cutting, filling with soil, lead to something nourishing, both for the body and for the soul. In the raised bed, you grow food, but also patience, gratitude, and a quiet sense of belonging to the earth. There is a quiet magic in the making of soil blocks. Unlike plastic trays or pots, these little cubes of earth feel alive, breathing, and ready to cradle new beginnings. Imagine taking a handful of rich soil, darkened with compost and minerals, pressing it firmly into a mold, and then lifting it up to reveal a block that holds itself together. Simple, clean, and clever. The beauty of soil blocks lies in their kindness to young plants. Roots are never trapped or twisted. When the time comes to move them into the garden, there is no shock, no tearing away from hard plastic. Instead, the plant carries its entire home with it, the roots protected, the soil intact. It is a transition as smooth as a child moving from cradle to bed, gentle and natural. For the gardener, soil blocks are also a lesson in balance. Too dry, and they crumble. Too wet, and they fall apart. Finding the right mixture, part compost, part sand, part loam, becomes an art of touch and patience. And in this practice, you connect more deeply with the essence of gardening itself, the meeting of hand, soil, and seed. When placed neatly on a tray, lined in rows like tiny brown bricks, they look humble. But within each one lies the potential for a tomato vine that will climb a trellis, or a lettuce head that will brighten a summer meal. Each block is a promise, each sprout a whisper of harvests to come. In a world filled with plastic waste, choosing soil blocks feels like a small rebellion, a return to the old ways, a step toward harmony. And as those green shoots rise from the cubes you shaped with your own hands, you realize it is not just plants you are growing, but resilience, renewal, and hope. There is something profoundly calming about a greenhouse standing quietly in a countryside backyard. From a distance, it looks like a simple structure of glass and wood, but step closer, and it becomes a sanctuary. The clear walls catch the morning light, softening it, creating a warmth that both plants and people can feel. Inside, the air holds a gentle humidity, carrying the earthy fragrance of soil and seedlings. Building a greenhouse in the countryside is more than a project, it is a promise. Each plank of wood, each screw tightened, is a commitment to nurture life through the seasons. When the winds outside grow harsh or the frost begins to creep, the greenhouse stands as a shield, allowing tender plants to thrive where otherwise they would falter. In spring, it is a nursery, protecting seedlings that are too fragile for the open air. In summer, it becomes a place of abundance, rows of tomatoes climbing higher, cucumbers stretching on trellises, herbs perfuming the warm air. And in autumn, when the fields begin to fade, the greenhouse still glows with life, carrying forward the harvest when the world outside grows quiet. For the gardener, it offers more than practical benefit. It becomes a retreat, a place to step into when the day feels heavy. Among the rows of green, worries soften and time slows. Watching condensation bead on the glass or hearing the patter of rain on its roof brings a sense of intimacy with nature that few other places can offer. And when the harvest comes from within those walls, there is a deeper gratitude. The greenhouse is not just a building. It is a living room for the plants, a keeper of warmth, and a gentle reminder that with care and patience, life finds a way to flourish, even in the smallest corners of the countryside. There is a special kind of alchemy that happens when we mix the earth's gifts together to nourish our gardens. It begins with simple things: compost from kitchen scraps, manure from grazing animals, sand and minerals drawn from the land. Alone, each is humble, but when blended with care, they form a living recipe, a quiet promise that our plants will grow strong and generous. Making organic fertilizer is not about strict formulas, but about balance. Too much of one, and the soil feels heavy. Too little of another, and the plants grow hungry. The gardener learns to listen to the texture of the mix in their hands, to the way moisture clings or crumbles. It is a language spoken between human and soil, patient and slow. In a wheelbarrow or on the ground, the mixture comes alive. Compost adds warmth and vitality. Manure brings richness, sand gives breath, and mineral powders provide steady strength. When turned together with a shovel, the blend carries the fragrance of life itself, earthy, sharp, and comforting all at once. When sprinkled into a raised bed or beneath a seedling, the fertilizer becomes invisible, sinking into the soil. Yet its presence is felt in every leaf that greens brighter, in every root that digs deeper, in every fruit that swells with flavor. It is a gift given quietly, without demand for recognition. And perhaps the greatest lesson in organic fertilizer is that nothing is wasted. What falls, what decays, what is cast aside, these are not ends, but beginnings. In the garden, death transforms into life, scraps into sustenance. It reminds us that nature's cycle is generous, and if we learn to honor it, our gardens will return that generosity tenfold, feeding not just our bodies, but our sense of belonging to the earth. In every garden, there is a quiet friendship unfolding beneath the leaves. Companion planting is the art of letting vegetables and herbs live side by side, each offering something the other cannot provide alone. It is a lesson borrowed from nature herself, where diversity brings strength and harmony. Imagine a row of tomatoes climbing tall, and at their feet, basil grows with a fragrance that confuses pests. Marigolds bloom nearby, their golden heads not just beautiful, but protective, keeping harmful insects at bay. Carrots stretch their roots deep into the soil, while onions grow close, warding off unwanted visitors with their sharp scent. Together, they form a tapestry more resilient than any monoculture could achieve. This practice is not only practical, but deeply poetic. It reminds us that growth is never solitary. Plants, like people, thrive when they are part of a community. Each companion plant plays a role, Some shade, some enrich the soil, some invite pollinators, and some stand guard against harm. It is a living example of cooperation, woven into the soil. For the gardener, companion planting is also a way of bringing beauty into function. The patchwork of colors and shapes, leafy greens, climbing vines, bright blossoms, creates a garden that feels alive, not just as a source of food, but as a vibrant ecosystem. It draws bees, butterflies, and birds, filling the air with movement and sound. And when harvest comes, it feels like a shared celebration. The tomatoes taste sweeter because basil stood beside them. The lettuces are crisp because they grew in the cool shade of taller plants. Each vegetable carries within it not just nutrients, but the story of its companions. In the garden, as in life, we discover that we flourish best when we grow together. Summer brings abundance, but also a fierce sun that can turn soil into dust and plants into weary companions. This is where mulching becomes a gardener's quiet shield, a soft blanket laid over the earth to protect its life within. Imagine crouching down in the warmth of the afternoon, your hands spreading straw between the rows of tomatoes, feeling the soil stay cool beneath. Above, the leaves may tremble in the heat, but below, the roots rest in comfort. Mulch is more than a cover. It is a promise of resilience. A layer of straw, dried leaves, or wood chips slows the thirsty pull of the sun, holding precious moisture where it belongs. Each time you water, the mulch whispers to the soil, keep it safe, keep it close. And when rain finally comes, the mulch softens its fall, letting water sink gently instead of washing life away. The magic of mulching is also in its generosity. As the weeks pass, the straw decays, the leaves crumble, and the wood chips soften. They give themselves back to the earth, turning into food for the soil, enriching it quietly without fanfare. It is a cycle of protection and renewal, simple yet profound. For the gardener, mulching in summer is an act of patience and foresight. It means fewer weeds reaching for the light, less time spent watering under a relentless sky, and more time enjoying the beauty of a thriving garden. And perhaps it is also a reminder to shield ourselves when life grows too harsh, to pause, to rest, to let a layer of care soften the heat of the day. When harvest comes, every crisp cucumber, every sweet tomato owes its strength not only to the sun, but also to the unseen kindness of mulch, quietly guarding the roots beneath. To live with a self-sufficient garden is to discover freedom woven into the soil. It is not about cutting ties with the world outside, but about embracing a rhythm that feels slower, more intentional, more deeply connected. Imagine stepping into your backyard each morning, basket in hand, knowing that dinner will come not from a distant store, but from the rows you tended with patience. The beauty of this lifestyle lies in its simplicity. A tomato plucked warm from the vine, cucumbers crisp with the taste of summer, herbs that perfume the air as you brush past them. Each harvest carries the story of seasons, the careful sowing in spring, the quiet watering through long afternoons, the watchful eyes guarding against pests. It is food not just for the body, but also for the spirit. Self-sufficiency does not demand perfection. It welcomes small steps. A few jars of pickles stored for winter, a patch of greens that lasts longer than expected, a handful of herbs that brighten your meals. Over time, these little victories weave together into abundance. And when you open your pantry to see shelves lined with preserved harvests, or when neighbors share in the overflow of zucchinis, the sense of fulfillment runs deeper than taste. It is community, resilience, and gratitude made visible. Perhaps the greatest gift of a self-sufficient garden is the way it redefines wealth. Richness is no longer measured in currency, but in the crunch of a fresh carrot, the sweetness of strawberries eaten under the sun, the security of knowing you have grown what you need. In these small, steady acts, life becomes more grounded, more alive, more whole. A self-sufficient garden is not only a place of food, it is a way of living closer to the heart of the earth. Sometimes the most beautiful gardens are not in wide fields or sprawling backyards, but right on the edge of a window where sunlight falls gently each morning. A windowsill herb garden is a quiet joy, a small forest of fragrance that greets you as you boil water for tea or prepare a simple meal. Imagine brushing your hand across the leaves of basil, their sweet aroma rising instantly into the air. Mint waits nearby, fresh and cool, ready to flavor a drink on a hot day. Parsley stands proudly, its bright green a reminder that even the smallest spaces can hold abundance. These herbs do not need acres of land, only a little soil, a pot, and a window that welcomes the sun. The act of tending them becomes a ritual. A small watering can by the sink, a gentle check each morning to see new shoots unfurling. In this simplicity, the pace of life softens. You realize that growth does not demand grandeur. It thrives in the humble spaces, in corners we might have overlooked. Beyond their beauty, herbs are generous companions. They add flavor to meals, soothe the body in teas, and even freshen the air of your home. Each snip of scissors feels like a gift, a harvest that comes easily, reminding you that nature's kindness is never far away. For those in cities, a windowsill herb garden is more than decoration. It is a bridge to the natural world. It is proof that even without land, you can grow something with your own hands. And in that act, you reclaim a piece of calm, a piece of nourishment, a piece of life. A garden, no matter how small, always whispers the same truth. Growth is possible, anywhere light finds its way. A balcony may seem like a narrow slice of space, but in the hands of a gardener, it can become a small paradise. Step outside on a bright morning, and instead of empty concrete, you find rows of pots brimming with life. Cherry tomatoes hang like jewels against the railing, lettuce spreads its soft green leaves in clusters, and herbs scent the air with whispers of the earth. Balcony gardening is proof that abundance does not require vast land. With a few containers and the warmth of sunlight, vegetables can flourish above the hum of the city. Each pot becomes its own little ecosystem, roots stretching into soil, leaves reaching toward the sky. And as you water them, the sound of traffic fades, replaced by the quiet rhythm of growth. There is creativity here, too. Railings hold hanging baskets where beans can climb, while vertical planters stack neatly against the wall, turning bare surfaces into walls of green. Old buckets, jars, and wooden crates find new life as containers, carrying soil and seeds with humble pride. What was once a place for drying clothes or standing idly now becomes a stage for nature's performance. For the gardener, the reward is immediate. A handful of fresh greens for dinner, a ripe tomato picked before breakfast, a sprig of basil added to a warm meal. Each harvest feels more precious because it came from a place so small, yet so full of possibility. And perhaps the greatest beauty of balcony gardening is the way it reshapes perspective. It teaches us that no space is too limited for life to thrive. Even in the busiest of cities, even in the smallest of corners, nature finds its way back, bringing nourishment, beauty, and a touch of peace. Compost is often called black gold for a reason. In it lies the quiet transformation of what we discard into what gives life. A banana peel, a handful of dry leaves, a stalk of grass cut the day before, each is humble on its own. But gathered together in a pile, turned by patient hands, they begin a slow alchemy, breaking down into soil rich with promise. Making compost at home is a lesson in both patience and renewal. Each day, kitchen scraps and garden waste are added, layered with dry materials like straw or leaves. The pile warms as unseen workers, worms, fungi, and countless tiny organisms go about their work. Steam may rise on a cool morning, the earth itself breathing as it digests what has been given. And after weeks, sometimes months, what once looked like waste becomes dark, crumbly earth that smells of rain and forests. This is not just recycling, it is rebirth. By composting, we return to the soil what it gave to us. Every peel and stem that once nourished our table finds its way back to nourish the roots of future harvests. Nothing is wasted, nothing is lost, everything circles back into life. For the gardener, spreading homemade compost onto a bed feels like offering a gift. The plants respond with vigor, their leaves greener, their stems stronger, their fruits fuller. It is nature's way of thanking us for honoring her cycle. Perhaps the beauty of compost lies not only in the soil it creates, but also in the perspective it teaches. That even in decay there is purpose, that endings are beginnings, that life continues quietly, steadily, without needing to be rushed. To compost is to trust time, to trust the earth, and to stand in awe of the resilience that lies within both. A raised bed, like any part of the garden, carries the marks of time. Wattle fences woven years ago may fray, their once strong edges softening under rain and sun. Yet in this gentle decay lies an invitation to rebuild, to strengthen, to give the garden new foundations. Upgrading to wooden raised beds is not only about durability, it is about renewing the canvas on which life will continue to flourish. Imagine standing in the backyard, hands steadying a new plank of wood, the scent of fresh timber mingling with the earthy fragrance of soil. The frame takes shape, square and solid, promising seasons of growth ahead. As the soil fills the bed once more, it feels as though you are laying down not just dirt, but hope. Every shovelful is preparation for the life that will soon emerge. Wooden raised beds bring a quiet order to the garden. Their straight lines and sturdy walls hold the earth in place, resisting erosion, keeping roots safe from flooding rains. The wood warms in the sun, creating a gentle microclimate that encourages seeds to wake earlier in spring and linger longer in autumn. They are not just containers, but protectors, silent guardians of the harvest. And yet, beyond the practicality, there is beauty. Wooden beds lend a rustic charm, blending seamlessly with the countryside. Over time, they weather gracefully, taking on a patina that tells of seasons past, of storms endured, of harvests shared. To upgrade a raised bed is to honor the lessons of the past while preparing for the future. It is a reminder that in gardening, as in life, things break down, but they can be rebuilt stronger, steadier, ready once again to hold the roots of tomorrow. Every culture carries with it flavors that speak of home. For Vietnamese families, the garden often holds varieties of vegetables that are as familiar as the voices around the dinner table. To grow them in your own backyard is to keep those traditions alive, to let distant memories root themselves in fresh soil. Among the favorites is Malabar spinach, with glossy, heart-shaped leaves climbing eagerly along a trellis. Its resilience makes it a joy for gardeners, thriving in warmth, resistant to pests, and offering leaves tender enough for soups and stir-fries. Nearby, water spinach stretches its slender stems, crisp and refreshing, a reminder of meals by riversides and bustling markets. Mustard greens add their bold flavor, a slight bitterness that balances the richness of broths and stews. Planting these vegetables is more than growing food, it is weaving culture into the soil. Each seed carries with it centuries of taste and memory, flavors passed from generation to generation. And when you harvest them, rinse the leaves under cold water and bring them into the kitchen, the act becomes both nourishment and remembrance. For the gardener, these vegetables are also a lesson in diversity. Their needs may differ. Some crave trellises, some spread low to the ground, but together they create a vibrant patchwork of greens. They teach patience, observation, and adaptability, qualities that echo the very spirit of gardening. And when a dish is prepared with leaves from your own garden, the satisfaction is deeper. It is not only the taste of freshness, but the comfort of connection to culture, to family, to the land that sustains us. A backyard with Vietnamese vegetables is more than a source of food. It is a garden of memories, of roots that reach across time and distance. There is a quiet elegance in the way Malabar spinach climbs. Its stems, tender yet determined, reach upward, guided by the simple frame of a trellis. Each heart-shaped leaf unfurls glossy and green, catching the sunlight as if it were made to shine. Watching this plant grow is to witness resilience, how something so delicate can become strong when given direction. Building a trellis for Malabar spinach is an act of both care and vision. With bamboo poles or wooden frames, you create a path for the vines to follow. Day by day, they twine higher, filling the structure with life until it resembles a living curtain, thick and vibrant. Beneath the summer sun, the trellis not only supports the plant but transforms the garden into a place of shade and abundance. Malabar spinach is generous to the gardener. Its leaves grow quickly, offering harvest after harvest throughout the warm season. Pick a handful for a soup, a stir-fry, or simply steamed, and within days new growth appears, ready to give again. Unlike many greens, it resists pests and thrives in heat, making it a steady companion in the garden when other plants might falter. There is also something deeply comforting about tending it. The gentle act of tying stems to the trellis, of watering the roots at dawn, of watching the vines climb steadily upward, it mirrors our own journeys. We, too, need guidance, support, and patience to grow. And when you finally step into the garden to harvest leaves that cascade like emeralds, you taste more than a vegetable. You taste the gift of time, the fruit of patience, and the quiet beauty of growth that reaches toward the sky. A garden's gift does not end at the harvest. The true joy comes when the fruits of one season are carried into the next, stored carefully so that summer's sweetness can be tasted in the chill of winter. Seasonal harvest storage is the art of extending abundance, of holding onto life's generosity just a little longer. Picture the moment: baskets filled with tomatoes, cucumbers, carrots, and beans brought into the kitchen after a long day in the garden. Some are eaten fresh, their flavor unmatched, but others are chosen for preservation, placed into jars, pickled, dried, or stored in crates where they will wait patiently. The shelves begin to fill, row after row, each jar glistening like a jewel of summer, each basket carrying the scent of the soil it came from. For the gardener, storage is not only about practicality, but about security and gratitude. In the quiet months when the ground lies frozen, opening a jar of homemade pickles or pulling potatoes from a cool crate brings comfort. It is like unwrapping a memory of sunlit days and hard-earned harvests. There is also creativity in this work. Some vegetables are dried to make teas and spices. Others are turned into jams, sauces, or preserved in brine. Even garlic and onions, when hung in bunches, become both nourishment and decoration. Their forms a rustic beauty against the pantry wall. And yet, beyond the food itself, harvest storage is about slowing down, honoring the cycle of seasons. It reminds us that every seed planted, every leaf tended, leads to moments of provision long after the garden rests. To preserve the harvest is to preserve time itself, a way of carrying the sunlit taste of the garden into the heart of winter. Every gardener learns quickly that they are not the only ones who love the taste of fresh vegetables. Birds swoop down for ripe strawberries, beetles nibble tender leaves, and caterpillars make quiet meals of young greens. Yet, protecting a garden is not about fighting nature, but about guiding it, finding balance so that harvests are shared but not lost. Imagine a row of tomatoes wrapped gently in fine netting, sunlight still streaming through, but wings kept at bay. Or a line of reflective ribbons tied along the fence, shimmering with every breeze, confusing curious birds who prefer easier meals elsewhere. Scarecrows stand tall in the field, rustic figures that guard with presence alone, reminders of old countryside wisdom. For pests that crawl and creep, the answer is often found in the soil itself. Companion planting offers allies, marigolds whose roots and fragrance keep unwanted insects away, basil and mint whose scents repel as surely as they delight. Nature provides its own defense if we invite it wisely. But there is also gentleness in this work. The goal is not to rid the garden of life, but to keep harmony. Birds may feast on wild berries beyond the fence, and insects may still buzz and hum, but the vegetables are guarded enough to thrive. In this way, the garden remains alive with diversity, not stripped of it. Protecting a garden becomes a ritual of care, checking nets, adjusting ribbons, planting flowers in between rows. Each act says, "Here, life is welcome, but balance must be kept." And when harvest arrives, tomatoes unpecked, lettuces whole, cucumbers crisp, the gratitude is deeper. For the garden has been safeguarded not with harshness, but with respect, patience, and the quiet wisdom of coexistence. In the heart of the city, where concrete and noise often drown out the sound of nature, a community garden rises like an oasis. It is more than a place to grow vegetables. It is a space where people gather, hands in the soil, spirits lifted by the simple act of tending life together. Picture neighbors arriving with baskets of seeds and tools, greeting one another with smiles. Children run between the rows, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. Someone waters the beans while another pulls weeds, and in these small shared tasks, friendships quietly bloom. The garden becomes a language that needs no translation, a bond built not from words but from roots and harvests. Each bed holds a story. Tomatoes planted by an elderly hand that remembers old methods. Herbs nurtured by a young couple trying gardening for the first time. Flowers sown at the edges by children, their colors brightening the entire space. Together, the garden grows not only food but community itself, a living patchwork stitched from the care of many hearts. Harvest time is a celebration. Baskets overflow with cucumbers, peppers, and greens. People share recipes, exchange jars of pickles, and laugh over meals made from what they grew together. The garden teaches that abundance feels richer when it is shared, and that food grown in companionship tastes sweeter. Beyond the vegetables, a community garden offers something rare in the city: stillness, connection, and belonging. It reminds us that even in the busiest places, life can slow down, roots can be planted, and neighbors can become family. In the soil of a community garden, we do not just grow plants, we grow hope, friendship, and the quiet certainty that together we flourish. Water is life, and in the garden, every drop matters. A drip irrigation system is like a gentle hand, offering water slowly and steadily, exactly where the roots need it most. There is no rush, no waste, just a quiet rhythm that mirrors the patience of nature itself. Imagine standing in your backyard on a bright morning, watching beads of water fall in measured drops onto the soil. Instead of spraying wide and evaporating in the sun, the water seeps directly into the earth, nourishing deeply, invisibly. The leaves remain dry, the soil stays moist, and the plants respond with strength and gratitude. Building a DIY drip system is simpler than it seems. Some gardeners stretch a line of tubing across their beds, puncturing small holes to let water flow. Others recycle plastic bottles, burying them near roots with tiny holes that release water drop by drop. In both ways, the garden drinks at its own pace, and the gardener saves both time and resources. This system is more than convenience, it is resilience. On days when the heat feels unrelenting, the soil remains cool beneath its surface. While the gardener may be away for work or travel, the plants continue to receive care. It is a quiet safeguard, a way of saying to the garden, even in my absence, you are not forgotten. And beyond the practicality, there is a beauty in its simplicity. Watching the steady drip feels like watching time itself, measured, patient, purposeful. It teaches us that care does not always need to be grand. Often, it is the small, consistent acts that sustain life. A drip irrigation system is not just about water. It is about trust, balance, and the quiet promise that the garden will thrive drop by drop, day by day. Winter is often seen as the garden's silence, a season of rest when the earth sleeps under frost and snow. But for those who look closely, winter also holds its own quiet abundance. Beneath the pale sunlight, hardy crops like kale, spinach, cabbage, and carrots continue their steady work, offering nourishment when the world outside seems bare. Imagine stepping into the crisp morning air, the garden glistening with frost, your breath clouding as you bend to harvest. The leaves may feel cool and firm, their veins carrying the strength of cold nights. Pull a carrot from the soil and notice how the chill has sweetened it, turning starch into sugar, a gift only winter can give. Gardening in this season is different. It asks for patience and preparation. Raised beds wrapped in mulch, cold frames, or simple greenhouses standing guard, and varieties chosen not for speed but for resilience. Yet in these small adjustments lies the promise of life continuing, even in the quietest months. There is beauty in the simplicity of winter crops. They grow slower, but their flavors deepen. They ask less, but give generously. And tending them reminds us that growth does not always shout with color or speed. Sometimes it whispers steadily in the stillness. For the gardener, winter crops bring more than food. They bring companionship in a season that might otherwise feel empty. The act of visiting the garden, brushing frost from leaves, and bringing a handful of greens to the kitchen is a reminder that even in cold and scarcity, there's provision. Winter gardening is proof that life never fully stops. It only changes form. And in the quiet resilience of hardy crops, we learn that strength often shows itself most clearly in the hardest seasons. Every gardener knows the bittersweet tug of leaving home. Travel promises new horizons, yet behind, in the garden, tender plants wait for care. It can feel like walking away from children, hoping they will be all right in your absence. But with a little foresight, a garden can be prepared to endure those days without you, drinking slowly, resting steadily, and waiting patiently for your return. One of the simplest hacks is deep watering. Before leaving, the soil is soaked thoroughly, moisture sinking far below the surface. With mulch spread thick above, the sun's heat cannot steal it away, and the roots find a steady drink even as days pass. Recycled bottles, punctured gently, are placed upside down near stems, releasing water drop by drop, as though the gardener's hand still lingers. Some choose small automation, drip lines connected to timers, ensuring a rhythm of water that mimics daily care. Others invest in self-watering pots, where reservoirs quietly keep soil moist. These tools become silent companions, tending in the gardener's stead. Travel-friendly gardening is not only about water, but also about resilience. Choosing hardy plants that forgive neglect, pruning before departure, and harvesting ripe produce ensures that the garden carries less burden while you are away. And perhaps the most comforting thought is this: the garden itself is patient. While weeds may grow and leaves may yellow, life continues. When you return, stepping back into the backyard, the sight of green leaves still standing feels like a welcome embrace. The garden is weighted, held steady, and reminds you once again of nature's quiet strength. With a few simple tricks, absence does not mean loss. It means trust in soil, in sun, and in the small preparations that keep life thriving even when you are far from home. A fence in the countryside is more than a boundary. It is a frame for the garden, a quiet guardian that stands through the seasons, holding within it both food and memory. Rustic fences, with their uneven wood or woven branches, carry a beauty that is honest, imperfect, and deeply human. They tell of hands that built not for show, but for purpose. Picture a wooden fence, its planks rough and weathered by sun and rain. Each board is different, some lighter, some darker, some with knots and cracks that speak of years lived. Yet together they stand strong, keeping wandering animals out, marking the space where the gardener's care resides. Inside, vegetables grow in safety, their colors bright against the simple wooden frame. A wattle fence, woven from branches, bends gracefully, its texture both delicate and firm. Or perhaps bamboo poles, cut from nearby groves, lashed together with rope, standing as light yet sturdy walls. These fences are not polished, but they carry the spirit of the land itself. They blend with the garden as though they have always belonged. For the gardener, building such a fence is a ritual of connection. Gathering branches, cutting wood, driving posts, it is work that roots you deeper into the soil. Each strike of the hammer, each knot tied, says, "Here is where life will grow, and here is where it will be protected." And as seasons pass, the fence weathers and changes, just as the gardener does. Moss may cling, boards may warp, but the fence continues to serve, a quiet reminder of resilience. In the rustic fence, there is honesty. It does not pretend to be perfect. It simply endures, holding the garden close, like arms around a living treasure.